first and foremost, what I think both of us would like to see is transparency from the CDL. Um, we might differ on the exact wording of like what exactly do you want them to be more transparent about, but that was the first thing that I wrote down on my wish list was I just want to see more transparency. And what that means to me is when something like this hacienda stuff comes by, and obviously this just happened last week or something like that, or 2 weeks ago. Well, we didn't hear anything from the CDL about it. We heard like, okay, this is a new map that's coming in, but I don't believe there was anything from Daniel Say or
Oh,
Spence. So I didn't see anything official other than this announcement that this happened. And obviously, after the announcement happened, there were many players and some coaches on Twitter complaining about the process by which this map was put in, and I believe it was Rewind that was taken out. And I would just like to hear from the people in charge. I'm not saying that they need to answer for their crimes. I don't think it's that serious, but I would like just more upfront transparency. I want these people to just say like, "Hey, we believe this is the best possible way. We could talk about it later if it doesn't work out, and we can change the process that we do these things with." But I think transparency is a good first step. Do you agree with that? That you want to see more transparency in the CDO?
yeah. I mean, that was my first thing on my list was better communication from the CDL or Daniel Say or just behind the scenes in general. And I will give the CDL credit. They did. I'm pretty sure it started last year. I can't remember if it started the year before, where they were doing the community updates and those like pre-recorded videos and stuff with Spence and Daniel Say. Um, However long ago it started. Regardless of that, just the frequency of those updates and how often they happen. There's no like regularity to it. I feel like they just like it'll be like after Major One last year. I don't remember if it happened after Major One, but just for the sake of this example, they did it after like the first event. It's like, yay, we're getting more transparency from the league office, and then after Major Two, nothing. And then they got something after Major Three, but then nothing after that. I don't remember if that's exactly how it went down, but just for the sake of an example, like it was just inconsistent. Despite like we got teased a little bit of breadcrumbs with the community updates, and it just I feel like it needs to happen more regularly, and I feel like those community updates could be where you discuss some of the stuff like that, like with the hacienda map change that we talked on the last episode about, where allegedly the players didn't weren't actually uh asked about it, and it was just a decision made by the league based on vetoes from the first set of matches so far in the 2025 season. um so like whether that's true or not, we actually don't have an answer to from the
Yeah, we
CDL. And
just have
like,
one side.
and if they do a community update after Major One, let's just say, like they might talk about that, and that's going to be in a month from now. Like, I get this is around the holidays and stuff, so like this specific example, is a little tricky, but I just think in general, like you said, transparency, better communication from those people, the upper echelon of the league, and people behind the scenes making changes and making important decisions, like just getting whatever we can out of them is crucial. And especially in those community updates, like they're never gonna address like super controversial topics or anything that could, you know they're going to take like the softball question. So like even if they're like, oh, you submit your questions and we'll answer some on the next community update, like even if there was literally 1 million replies saying, can we get a league an update on the league's viewpoint of the Pred situation, even if it was worded the most polite and you know intricate way, like they're just not going to address it. We know that's the case, and if they ever did, I'd be incredibly shocked. um so there's still, there's bits and pieces, and there's always wiggle room, and it's never going to be perfect, but whatever quote unquote more transparency looks like from the CDL, that is something I would like to see in 2025.
Yeah, and I think that's a key part of it is like we don't really agree, and we as like a community don't really agree on like what transparency or full transparency would mean with the CDL. I don't expect them to tell us literally every single detail, and I don't necessarily want every single minute thing that is happening behind the scenes. Like that would be interesting, but I know that's not realistic for anybody. It's not
Yeah.
something that professional sports leagues do. It's not something the CDL is going to do. And I also understand, and I want to say this, I understand that the bind that they are put in, they are not in an advantageous position whatsoever. I think I said it with Hacienda. I said it was a lose-lose, like the way it went down, because they tried to do something different. They tried to do something that would essentially take the power out of the players' hands. Something that we talked about with GA specifically, and people still crapped all over it. They still believed that it was the wrong move. So you really couldn't, in their position, do something right necessarily. Um, that being said, they just have to be more consistent. The community updates are a good thing. I don't even need a video. Like I don't need to see
Yeah, yeah.
Spence and Daniel Say sitting in some office in Burbank. Like I don't care about that. Like why couldn't one of them just tweet something? Like I'm not asking for much because this is not the NBA. This is not the NFL. I don't need Roger Goodell to get in front of a press conference podium and take questions from like the USA Today, Washington Post, New York Times. I'm just asking for a tweet. I'm asking for some transparency, some kind of give back to the community at times. And I'm not even saying like this is a common thing. Like I don't there's nothing that I can see on a day-to-day basis where I'm like, man, we need the CDL to talk about this. But it would help, like especially with like something like ranked play. Obviously, that's not something that the CDL specifically is on top of, but it is CDL adjacent. And having some kind of like liaison from the fans or the competitive community to what we hope is like the developers or Activision slash Microsoft. I think if it could just be something like that, like, and granted they probably can't say much. It just feels like we're not getting a lot of information. We also haven't really heard anything on what was it, the fourth major, and where exactly that will be,
Yeah.
if I remember correctly. So some updates on that, like potential places. We have heard rumors and stuff, but that is a big problem. Is like when there's no confirmation, there's no official word. We have to take, and this is not a shot at any, but like we have to take Jacob Hale, we have to take Breaking Point, we have to take these different people at their word because those are the only people that are giving us any information at that time. And whether it's right or wrong, that is the information that we have to work with. And if Daniel Say or Spinna Spence or anybody in the CDL or just like the official Call of Duty League Twitter account says like we've narrowed down the potential major four options to these four cities, I think that would just give a better idea. Or in like this is the timeline that we're working under on when we might make this decision. That's something that would help. But I don't want to make it out to be any bigger than it is. Like I'm not saying that this is like a detrimental or like this is going to doom the CDL or in any way. I just think it could be better. And if this is a wish list, and sometimes you don't get anything or get everything that you wish for, this is something I definitely think most people in the CDL or around Call of Duty esports would wish for. Is just a little bit more transparency, more consistent discussions, Q&As, Reddit AMAs, something along those lines that we feel like we're somewhat connected to what's going on behind the scenes.
And I mean, if you go to the CDL website right now and go to the news section, I'm just gonna like read off the headlines for some of the when it's sorted by latest. The most recent news post is Major One Pick'em is live. After that, tune in for opening weekend to unlock these rewards. Then 2025 League Pack now available in game. 2025 season announcement. 2025 competitive settings. another pack after that, and then so the seventh latest news post on the CDL website is Optic Texas 2024 Call of Duty League champions. Like that happened what,
June.
5 months ago now? Yeah, like
Yeah, it's like
you know,
six, 7 months.
I get there was the off season, so it's not the best sample size. We'll have to see, but like since this current season started, there really hasn't been any communication outside of that initial announcement of the season where some of the events were, the new minor system, etc. And if you go a little deeper in that news post, I had to click whatever the button is, load more. I only had to click it once to get to this, but the announcement from last year on April 16th titled "The Future of the Call of Duty League." We dove in depth to that single post, and even that post itself, which I would argue is probably the most important post we've gotten on the CDL website ever in the CDL history. It's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 paragraphs, and some of those paragraphs you can argue if they're actual paragraphs or not. But I mean, it's not a novel. It's not the longest thing ever. So like using that as an example, what's stopping the CDL from doing like an even shorter post than that? Let's say if that's a 10 paragraph post, give us 4 or 5 paragraphs on, hey, this is the map pool change that happened. This is why we did this. This is why it's coming in. We're going to keep an eye on how this map plays, and as season 2 of Black Ops 6 goes live in game, we'll be examining some of those new maps and whatever is being brought to the game to evaluate how they could fit in the competitive landscape. That's not like super outlandish to I feel like that's something that could very easily be done and communicated, and it just isn't. So that's a simple example, and again, the timeliness I've just discussed in terms of potential announcements when we've only had a couple 2 weeks of online matches, and then we had a holiday break for you know Christmas and the holidays and New Year's and all that stuff. So there is time for this to change as the season, this break comes to a close next week and the season gets really into full gear again. But no matter what way you look at it, I don't think it is like being super negative or super critical to just say that expecting more transparency and communication from the CDL is something a lot of people would like to see in 2025.